Hi there, this is Jim the Keys Bartender. I hope I'm still here. Let me turn off my music here. It's still running. Reset it. Okay. I think it's episode 369. And it's You're Just a Bartender. I'll play into that shortly. Okay. Yeah, well, you know what? Just like at bars, after an eventful week, you can you can hardly not talk about the events of the week. And it's really interesting the interactions I'm having right now. I can't imagine what would be going on, or the severity of it, or the passion of it there. I mean, I can't keep my mouth shut. I can't imagine anybody else should. Um, and one of the one of the things that came out the other day, instead of someone attacking the validity of. Actually, I was trying to commit satire, and they took it entirely too serious. But it did mirror the. I went through the 5 stages of grief, being denial, number one, anger, number two, bargaining, number three, depression, number four, and acceptance, number five. And we noticed the range of emotions that people were having right on the internet. You have people going, well, hey, first they used the Black Lives Matter protest as well, tit for tat. You get to do it, we get to do it. Or complete denial of it, that it wasn't our supporters. They were infiltrated by Antifa, which I thought was ironic, because in about 250 years ago, 240 something years, 47 years ago, something around that, 45 years ago. No, that would have been 75. So whatever. Wait, it would be more like 400 and yeah, definitely around 460 years ago. And a group of people in Boston, a member of a militia group, the Sons of Liberty, I guess it was, which they decided to do something. They decided to do it first, though. I think they're the first ones that did it. They wanted to protest the Stamp Act, or the T Act, or whatever you want to call it. But it was a protest to the taxes that were put on the colonists without what they felt was, one of the arguments was, they weren't being represented. Taxes were being imposed with imperialist with it, meaning these are our subjects, you're subjects to the crown, and the other people in the United Kingdom, they had more of a say, somewhat more of a say, because they were represented. So when they wanted to protest the new tax, some of them decided to dress up like Native Americans, like Indians. They didn't really pass the muster. People really kind of understood who they were. They knew it wasn't a bunch of Massachusetts Indians or Lenape Bay. I think that's Pennsylvania. So whatever they were at that time, they knew they weren't local Indians. They decided to come all the way into Boston, which was a pretty big town. Pretty big town at that time. I mean, there was at least a couple thousand people. It wasn't a tiny village. So usually Native Americans didn't make forays into the capital of a region, which it was, that had most of the power in New England kind of radiated from, was Boston. So they went into Boston Harbor. They dodged the merchant ship, found some tea, and dumped it over. So part of it was confused who this might be. And as I say, well, who could it have been? Well, it seems like I saw a bunch of names. I saw some guys wearing feathers and had some paint on their face. They don't look like any Indians I knew. Matter of fact, they look like the kind of Indians that would be friends with Sam Adams, the local rabble rouser. He's been around. Which is, hey, listen, I'm not saying he's bad or not, but they noticed, they saw through it back then. They saw through it back then. They said, oh, that wasn't, after, the revolution started, they owned it. Like before then, they were trying to say, hey, it wasn't us. It was the Indians. That's where some of the guys didn't want to be. They had jobs to do, and they lived in the neighborhood. And there were people didn't realize there were a lot of loyalists around. A lot of loyalists, people that were still loyal to Crown. So most of the U.S., it was kind of equal division back then. The people that wanted to be remain under the Crown, and then you had the people that didn't, and the people that didn't were a little more active. So that's where I use that story, is to remind people that there was these right-wing activists that pretended they told them to dress like Antifa. They did the opposite. They suggested Antifa was told to dress like a Trump rally or Proud Boy or something like that. So some of the Proud Boys put on the elbow pads and knee pads and all that stuff, because they probably had them too, right? They just decided they don't wear them because the Antifa will wear them. Okay, well, whatever. And that's how they're using that as a thing. And that was it wasn't us, it was Antifa. That we were infiltrated. We had a plan to do something, and we were infiltrated, and the people that infiltrated it did exactly what we wanted them to do by breaking into the Capitol and threatening it. So we were so well coordinated, we had coordinated with the people that had infiltrated it. Or we weren't well coordinated at all. So you can't be both. You could be well coordinated and you did what you did, or you could be one that some other group helped achieve an objective. So you weren't you're complete sheep. So they led you right into the thing. So unless you're suggesting only the people that were inside it were Antifa, and they weren't, and their facial recognition software matched with their driver's licenses, and the people you went in with will be informing on you. So that ploy is not a really good ploy. And then there's other ones that are people that are out there that are saying, well, I still believe that it's still kind of like anger mode, but they moved on to depression. And they say, well, I'm just going to sit back and watch you guys have played it over 4 years. And I didn't sit back. I suggested at any time I would have been accepting if this guy did anything within the norm, but he was hateful from the beginning. So, like a dumbass that I am, I was still kind of pissed at the things that went on. But my daughter came home from school yesterday, and one of her teachers made an offhand comment that they were probably Antifa, the people that did those things. So even Fox News isn't really parroting that idea. And the members of the administration aren't resigning because Antifa staged a rally. No, the members of the Secretary of Transportation, which is close to actually the Department of Defense, because Secretary of Transportation used to be head of the Coast Guard and stuff like that, but they're very integral. And Betsy DeVos, the billionaire woman who wanted to give all the education money to to charter schools and stuff like that, making school choice one and killing the public education model in the United States, they resigned. And they don't resign because other people ruined your rally. They resigned because they saw what the president was doing. Okay? So, that last argument that you're just waiting for us. Obama didn't do any of that shit at the end of that. He went to the inauguration. Biden was there too, and they made a soft handout of transition. Okay? So, I heard this Antifa stuff from my daughter about her teacher, and I think, wow. Tell her, I started thinking, these people are dealing with the 5 stages of grief. And I said, you know what, I'll write a post. And you know what's funny? I'll just paraphrase it. I think the people are going through, there's a 5 stages of grief, and hopefully they pass through all of them. I didn't say that. I should have said that. And the first one was denial, which they all pretty much, there were very few of them. Once Trump said, or someone parroted there was cheating, everyone else did, even though all the cases and all that stuff, none of them were unsubstantiated and were thrown out by courts that are mainly Republican. And a lot of them were Trump appointees. So on the merits of the case, they just dropped those. So everything they're so far, up till this moment, they have not submitted one case out of all the cases that were legitimate, seen by almost predominantly courts that were pretty much on the same side as Trump. So, I mean, if there's 60 cases, they brought the best. They generally should, because of how desperate they thought the situation was. Should have they brought their 60 best cases at the time, right? If they had them, and then they had affidavits and all that stuff. And you know what I feel about affidavits. Affidavits, and nowadays an affidavit is almost useless considering the way they're used. Okay, so generally an affidavit just says, "I swear I saw this." You know, but there's people out there that swear that they were anally probed by an alien on a back road, Tallahassee Road on a Saturday night. Very well could have been. They could have been a motorcycle gang. Who knows? So that got me all worked up and thinking all the stages of grief. And so people are in denial. Denial, it didn't happen. There's, everyone I've seen, there was all, think of the boat parades. Think of all the hats and the shirts and the flags. The flags on the trucks. Everyone had them. Not everyone had it. Everyone you noticed. Really. And, a lot of people that went with you were terrified not to go with you because they were tied to you. They're either married to you, they're in your group of friends and stuff like that. Some of them voted. Probably like a third of those voters for Trump would just get people off their ass. So 24 million votes were just for you, to get you to shut up. Okay? So that's your denial. It didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. And, it still didn't happen. They say, it's got to be wrong. So that's when most of them moved to 2. And 2 was anger. They said, it couldn't happen. It had to be stealing. Then they said, all of a sudden, they're going to just look for every confirmation bias story they can get from. Any place. Any kind of crazy one. I mean, come on, listen. There's a segment of people that believe that Democrats are all running a sex, a child sex ring, and they drink blood and they worship the devil. Oh, are you kidding me? You're going to depend on people like that, and they're the ones who buy into it first. And they buy into it so much that there's some of the people around them that are saying, I don't know what to believe in. I don't know what to believe in. This person certainly believes what this is, and they're my friend. So they go along with it. So you have a certain amount of people that do it. That's in their group and all that stuff. And we saw the ultimate group this past Tuesday of people that are alike. So, number 2, so they're angry. They're going to do something. Blah, 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 doing all this crazy stuff. Tearing signs. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Just making messing stuff, being nighttime maskers, do this stuff, run around with guns. So I'm going to protect my street. I'm not going to be okay. That's the anger and stuff like that. Then the bargaining. He said, listen, we're going to have a commission. We're going to go and do this. So some are pretending and bargaining. Okay, they didn't lose, but we're going to test. We're going to find out some of these votes. We're going to show, once we show that there's some legitimate votes out there and it's good argument, it's accepted, then they'll believe the rest of the stuff we said was correct happened. Okay? Now, remember, there's a whole bunch of people still at 2. And people at 3. There's a whole bunch of them at 3. And they said, okay, we're going to see. We're going to start objecting and all that stuff. And we'll see. We'll do it. But they believe the people that were, most of the people that were objecting to Congress and Senate and stuff like that, they were already in 4, right? And the results from the Tuesday before, this is Wednesday, I'm sorry, the Tuesday, the day before, the final results of the Georgia election made the Senate Republicans all depressed and stuff like that. And then you had, and so they're all depressed and stuff like that. They're not. But you know what pushed a lot of them into the I'm not going to go over what happened on Wednesday, but you know what happened on Wednesday. They were going to try to certify the Electoral College in Congress, in the House and the Senate. And, just accept the counts. Just the way it is. But, they got all ginned up. They had a rally. And there was talk back and forth in Parliament that there was a big event. I had a friend a couple weeks ago. He was certain after January 20th, Trump would be the president. He was certain. He suggested I was naive. You don't understand what I understand. They probably sat around in a group, got all angry and stuff like that, told them what they're going to do. There were some big talkers talking about how they're going to, string up people, kill Democrats or kill whatever opposition, soft-hearted Republicans, cotton-headed woolly mockers. I think that was it from the Elf Curse or something like that from the movie The Elf. So, there were some of them going to do that. So she had all these people in the stages, the denial, and there's people that are so deep in denial. The stage one's really scary. They just say, hey, Donald Trump is still my president. I don't care what they did in front of Congress or Supreme Court. There's going to be a group of those. Now, the twos were at the rally. They were angry. They said, we didn't get our votes counted. They took away our votes. Okay. They never really explained how, if there was a steal, how come all the Republicans won back their seats and gained seats? At least on this past November, in Congress, Republicans won more House seats, right? And except for the runoff in Georgia, because of this, peculiar rules, Georgia Republicans probably would have won the Senate seats if they didn't have that crazy rule, if they just ran those senators, against each other this time, even though Georgia was so close. There's a possibility they would have won if they didn't have this restrictive runoff law. And runoff law was more of a remainder of against the Voting Rights Act. So the more well-financed candidate gets more votes. And then, it just knocks off these people that it just ensures that, well-financed campaigns, and that's where, Democrats have a little less and all that stuff. So I made a post about that. I thought about all the stages of grief and all that stuff, and how some of the actions on Wednesday pushed the people that were pushed the 3 and 4s over to number 5. Lindsey Graham went over to number 5. And there were 4s. There were a couple 4s in the Republican Party, but I'd say about 43 or 42 Republican senators went from uh, three being threes and fours, all the way being a five, because of the behavior of that mob and the president. How did he think? How's it possible? I mean, besides after the terror that you had a mob of people, and a mob of people is pretty, think of any soccer game where the crowd gets out of control. Think of that. Think of those crazy mobs, and think of whatever, even the social justice riots and stuff like that. Who wants to be in the middle of a fucking riot? Who's in their sane mind would be in the middle of a riot, unless it was, in their head they thought it was worse. They thought it was like the Warsaw Uprising during World War II, where Jews that were still remaining in the Nazi-created ghetto inside of Warsaw uprised against the final solution, about the final roundup of people inside the Jewish ghetto. And they thought, well, they equated themselves with that, even though some of the people that are inside that group were anti-Semitic. I mean, there was a guy wearing a Camp Auschwitz T-shirt. Work will set you free was on the bottom, and that was the Nazi slogan that I think that was in front of Auschwitz. I mean, most of those people really couldn't point Poland out in the map, let alone where Auschwitz was in Poland, or have a firm idea of what was going on and how closely they resembled the brown shirts of Kristallnacht, or to beer hall push or something like that. It was a fascist thing. And yes, young pseudo-progressive activists who eventually become their left or right wing, certain these activists on the far extremes are interchangeable. They're going to be a leader on one group or the another, one way or another. One way or another, they're going to end up. And a lot of times when you have these great crazy leaders, they're there and they see them eventually. Some people see them and they see them earlier. You have, like cult leaders, like Charlie Manson and stuff like that. He was able to get to, what a group of drug-addled youths together, right? But then millions of people followed Trump. That was insane. Think of the way he looked. He was an anemic-looking, skinny little man with a weird mustache. And he had a voice, and there was a certain amount of people that just said, this guy is great. I mean, you hear a guy make bombastic speeches and stuff like that, and you go, this guy's a leader. No, he's not. People are saying it's just this filter. I think it's a filter what people have when they see someone speak. Right? They just say, hey, listen, this man speaks from knowledge and intelligence. And this man speaks from the heart. It's put some deep thought into the things he's been saying. And there's other one who says, well, this guy's speaking from his limbic system, from his emotions, raw emotions. So we had to deal with all these things. And finally, the straw that broke the camel back, when you were a guy in 3 or 4 stage of grief, you finally, all of a sudden, that's all wiped out when you're fear for your life, or your life of your coworker, or your fellow representative, or you see the desecration of the Capitol. It was the Capitol, okay? Yeah, I understand a Black Lives Matters group. Sometimes the rioters went and they assaulted a courthouse or federal building and stuff like that, which is just a building. A building's a building. It's, I understand some things go on there, but there's nothing imbued with feeling. There's my fellow friend Lee Sharp. I'm going to have to call him right back, but my fellow friend. That's a weird. What was I talking about here? Just talking about when you're speaking, just making speeches and you're saying it, visceral responses, and just laying hold onto things and stuff and letting it go. So I made a ridiculous thing, other than because I did all that stuff, I gave it to my daughter. I said, listen, if this teacher says something like that, just say, because she can, if she's allowed to say her theory, impart a theory from your father and say you're going through stages of grief. Okay, and then I posted it. That's when I posted it on Facebook, and people say you don't let it go, just let it go. And I said, well, listen, it's Friday. It's less than 48 hours from the event. Why would we have to let it go? Did people say it after 9/11? Say, well, certainly, Jim, it's not the same as 9/11. It's similar in symbology. We had a leader, the President of the United States, incite a mob, and his family and his underlings, his assistant, the hunchback, Rudy Giuliani, his evil son, who's Mordred. I guess it was Queen, whatever, was in Camelot and stuff, and Mordred was Don Jr., right? And they incited a mob to go down to the courthouse, and they used language that they know it wasn't a metaphor. They don't understand metaphor. The metaphor was saying we're going to show them. Okay, we're going to show them. We're going to kill them. We're going to beat them. We're going to take them hostage. Whatever. That may be one thing, but you made certain that the threat was clear because you wanted to bring guns. And were you afraid that you were going to be robbed? No one's going to rob a Trump rally. And what are they going to get anyway? So I posted all these things, and then one guy just goes off, and he says, why do we have to listen? Why should we listen to a bartender? Well, you don't have to. You're commenting on this thing. It says, your bad psychology, and blah, 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 blah. It's the stages of grief. I just pointed it out, and the model fits. I'm showing you where the model fits. So he goes on and on. He mentions, he goes, well, we didn't do these things you did do the things. Matter of fact, the president never changed his mind until a court ordered him to, once they saw that Obama had to get his birth certificate. Obama had to get its birth certificate. And I'll fly it over here to show you. President Obama had to show a birth certificate. And you're worried about us. And it's bullshit. Okay? We're just commenting on what happened, who had incited it, and what group of people incited it, so they could change this cockamamie idea that there was a steal going on. It's just a fact. Got more votes than the other guy did. So we got more votes because of mail fraud. No, it's not. Mail's been around since the Civil War and stuff like that. They used absentee, and Trump voted by absentee ballot. That validates, go like this. I mean, if you like Trump going, do not commit adultery. Right? Imagine it came up there. Don't ever commit adultery. And never explain what he did. Never lie to your customers. He never said any of that stuff. He never says that stuff. But he also never apologizes for whenever it's wrong. There's never anything wrong, and if there was any way he lost, it couldn't be real. It was all going to be, he said it before the election. There's no way I'm going to lose. Even though their polls had him behind. So, unless with the cheating, what's going on was on the other side, which they started finding, whenever they find cheating, if they do find cheating, most of it is Republican. It's not because Republicans cheat more. It's just like there's no organized cheating because they can't. When someone's focused on you cheating, you can't do anything. You got to cross your T's and dot your I's. Now, the Republicans didn't have to cross the T's and dot their I's because they actually, the Democrats didn't say there was extra cheating and stuff like that. They said the election was lost because of restrictions on polling places and things like that. Had nothing to do with people changing their votes or ballots and stuff like that. So it's not that people are more likely to cheat. Once you start focusing on cheating, they don't do that one. They don't do that at all. So they control people to vote their way. And they ended up getting over 70 million people to vote for them. But Jesus, stop fighting right now. I'm just saying this is the stages of grief. And Lindsey Graham said it on Wednesday night. He could have just let it go, could have said stuff about, he could have still said the stuff he said, about the country doing great when he left and all that stuff. Look, nothing happened. And then a group of people can believe it. Says, yeah, we did so good and stuff like that. And then could have done that, but then instead of, after all the court cases failed and everything like that, they could have just, trying to convince someone an unconstitutional act like changing someone's electoral votes. And, that's the thing. They didn't believe it. He said once Pence didn't go along with it, Trump went out and said his thing. We're going to watch on. If it had changed and they were still debating, there would be no reason to do that. They wouldn't have had to cajole him. He goes, well, listen, they're doing a debate now, or whatever. And they would have said, like, if Pence said, I don't accept these votes, and people say, well, it's illegal. You've got to go to the Supreme Court. And they go, well, there's no need. Once Pence did something, someone tried to do something unconstitutional, that could have shut everything down. There would be nothing to invade. So they're going to find out whether there was a reason why they didn't have the security up there when they knew ahead of time that instructions were already given to them that they should approach the Capitol. If you had tens of thousands of people there, trust me, they would have had troops up there, just like they should when they're. You got to secure those areas. Perfectly makes sense to secure those areas, even when there's. Who said if you're chasing? I don't care if you're what kind of demonstration you're in. If you're trying to get into the Capitol when there's going on, I would say shoot to kill sometimes. If people are saying don't go in there, they're doing something. Don't go in there right now. Now's not the time to do it. And they just went ahead. Well, we're going to go and do it. And they say, well, that's why you shoot. And I said, you could say that about someone that goes in someone's house and just takes shit out of their house. Don't go in there. You can say, here you can just shoot them, right? People say that, you shouldn't have. Someone's going to take your TV and stuff. I don't necessarily shoot someone coming in the door and you needed to take my television, which, you got to be a pretty big guy take that big screen television. So, I don't know if I'd want to try to stop them with or without a gun. When someone ripped the television off and went out the door, if their object was getting, now that's a side note. What are we talking about? But these people went in there, and one of the guys, you've seen the pictures, there were guys, people had guns on them. One guy had 11 Molotov cocktails, or 10 or 11. Now, I guess there was supposed to be ensuing probably violence, and then these things would go on and stuff. But I guess the guy saw it. He said, well, if I'm the only one doing it, I'm going to be the only one charged with it. No way of getting away from it. But you got all these people getting their pictures taken. Now they're rounding them up now. They're going to do it slowly. Some of the people that are chasing them down are complicit. But then they're going to finally say, whatever happened to that guy? Well, we can't find him. So, we'll put this other person on it. You seem to be a little too close to it. So, get on to make a long story short. One guy, the guy that did it, he goes on and on. Go back and forth. He's making an argument for me. He won't let go. And he says, it's juvenile. You must be going through the stages of grief. I can categorically tell you that I've gone through the stages of grief. Maybe not in exact order. In a relationship, I certainly did it a lot quicker than in 2016. No, I accepted he was, at least for now, was it? And there was question on whether he was complicit in Russian involvement in tampering. The Russians did it again. I think the Russians directed this debacle almost. But the willing participants were on our side of the pond. So I eventually did it. They said, next year, you're just going to vote. We're going to do it. Now, it was going to win or lose. If they lost, there wasn't much to it. Once the election came, it said it was it. There's nothing we could do about it. What are we going to do? They're going to object a little. The House could object. There would probably be a senator or two might go against it. How would that solve anything? You guys would never accepted that. You never would have accepted that. If we flipped over the election. There would have been riots then. Jesus, there would have been riots if we flipped it over. Even if we showed that it was, they had proof and a Republican judge said this is valid proof, you still wouldn't accept it. So, should you say you shouldn't say anything about what happened? It's like being at a family dinner and some guy takes his plate and throws it up against the wall with the food on it. You're not going to talk about it? It just happened. It's hard not to because I don't want to talk about it. Just post pictures of kittens. Here's some horses. There was an attempted coup in the United States, and you want to talk about horses and kittens. That's fine, but don't be surprised. And then you got some people that are from non-local say, can't we just love each other? Say not local. There's one guy I know. He's just posting on it. Just be nice to each other. You think with all this stuff, you're going to come in here. You don't take sides. That's all right. You're not taking sides, but telling us not to engage each other just because you don't care, it interferes with your good time. So, same thing. We understand you believe this stuff, but you're gonna have to listen to other news and can't spend your day talking about this. I can because I got a podcast. It's my art. It's my fucking art. That's it. I can do this. I'm not going to spend hours though responding while you're making an argument for yourself that you're not in that grief thing. And I did it, and I would have had to do it all over again. Do it all over again, and I realized we'd have to listen. I don't vote as much with my pocketbook because I didn't do worse or less under Obama. I didn't do worse or better under Trump. I was about the same. Things didn't get it, but I don't know what exact reason it is for. But I don't blame it on the President of the United States or give credit for it because most of it is how I live my life. Now, if it got really bad and crazy here, then I'd have to point to that. But I really haven't been affected either way to that kind of thing. So stop gaslighting people that for 4 years heard you talk about the Trump train and watching your Trump boat parades and your big Trump rallies, seeing him on the news and hearing this guy say shit about people. Don't be surprised that we come out and we say, why would you be surprised? It happened. You didn't tone it down. You didn't tell your friends to tone it down. Did you ever tell your friends, hey, tone it down? The Cowboys, last time Cowboys won a Super Bowl were in the 90s. So calm down the we're going all the way thing, right? You're not succeeding. And don't tell us we're idiots about it. It's on the cusp. Even your people are leaving that. Call them traitors, faithless people. It's akin to that one guy he said on Facebook, and it was a great way. It was a tweet. He mentioned Treasury Secretary Chow and Betsy DeVos, where they're resigning to show their displeasure with the behavior of the president. It happened. That's the truth. I don't know how you spell it. Either way, that's the truth. Now, he said, I applaud your courage, your heroism. I, too, have been on a domestic airline flight and have unbuckled my seatbelt before the plane had stopped moving. So that's your living on the edge and stuff like that. And running down an under-defended national symbol, the Capitol, taking down the American flag, trying to put a Trump flag up there, bashing the windows in, going and tearing things off the wall, vandalize. I guess, if it wasn't Tifa, there definitely would have been spray paint. You guys just don't work in paint. That's just the one thing. A couple of them do. Some of the Nazis do the Nazi thing. Well, they didn't do that. They didn't. Well, maybe they didn't do that. You stole some things. You posed for pictures when you stole for things, so that's going to be very nice. And you posted it on your social media, which you could try to clean up. You weren't there and stuff like that. That's just the way it's going to be. You're going to end up one of the guys who, the guy that sat in the chair, Mike Pence's chair, and took a pitch selfie of himself. He apologized to the Idaho and the United States. He didn't realize what he was doing. Yeah. It's mob mentality. And there were people running that. There was a system for that. So it's less than 48 hours. Give us a chance to process it. Do not excuse it. Say, hey, what are you going to say? It's just like walking around. There's a dead body on your street, in the middle of the street. Right? And they're going to say, go away, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. Well, that's my neighbor. Dead on the street. What do you mean there's nothing to see here? There's everything to see here. Something happened. Nothing to see here. Go home. Good thing. Well, I have information that could lead to, we'll get to you. We'll get to you. Like they're saying, just ignore it. Let them go away. Shut up. No, you have to address this before it's over. So it can't happen again. We're going to have to do this all the time. I mean, we're going to have to do this on inauguration day. Every time they go to office, you're going to have to worry about it. What do you think is going to happen, guys? You're either going to, with the astute people that you have on your side, those guys that went into the Capitol building against an underdefended building, do you believe that you're going to put up against the forces of the U.S. government? Good luck. Good luck. You're going to have your little thing, your little insurrection. You're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater because you don't believe you believe you're being taxed too much. I mean, how much do they tax you on $75,000 of crystal meth earning? How much taxes do you pay on it? Well, this is Jim the Keys Bartender. Thank you for listening. I'm going to be back maybe later on tonight with my friend Steve. Hopefully we're going to be able to move on there. We're going to probably say something a little more. But right now I'd like to thank you for listening and take care and move through those stages of grief. If you're listening to this, you shouldn't even be listening. It's probably going to make you even unhappier. Take care. Have a good day. And listeners, don't try to engage people that won't listen to facts or just saying that fake news. Just they follow a couple people. That's all they have to do. And it's usually not morally consistent what they have to say. They got a very small circle of people they care about, and it's people that think exactly like them because they don't give a shit about anybody else. 15% of the population only care about themselves. They don't care about you. They care about people that look like them and think that like them. Outside that circle, you might as well be fucking dead. That's the way they are. Us, on the other hand, we don't think that way. I know that makes it hard, but luckily there's a lot more of us. So, take care. God bless. Bye.